Okay, we're good. Streaming live. Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. The time is now 9:05 a.m. and I call to order the September 9th, 2023 LC Whitlow Stokes Freedom Public Charter School board meeting. Welcome to our board meeting. My name is Dr. Anton Smith and I am the board chair. Our board members today are, and I'll do a roll call, Erica McGrady, Tracy Friedland, Adina Ellis, Beatrice Carvalho, and that's it. And I guess, do I need to have them signify present or okay? So we'll ask everyone to affirm their presence on this call. Erica McGrady.
Good morning, here.
Tracy Friedlander.
Good morning, I'm here.
Beatrice Carvalho.
Good morning, here.
Adina Ellis.
Good morning, here.
And Anton Smith here. Thank you all. Okay.
Carlos is also just joined.
Okay. If you said a welcome, Carlos. Carlos Bonner has joined us. Can you certify your presence, Mr. Bonner?
Good morning. Carlos Bonner is present.
Appreciate that, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we are all here. Can I get a motion to approve the September 9th, 2023 board meeting agenda that was sent out? Everyone, I want to make sure everyone received the revised agenda.
This is Tracy Friedlander. I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 September agenda.
Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the September 9th board meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the September 9th, 2023 board meeting agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? The agenda is approved. Motion carries. Okay, good. So that being the case, we can dive into the agenda. I believe we start off with Mr. Bobby Caballero.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And you're going to share,
I
Ms.
will
Bryant?
share.
You share
I certainly will. Just a moment.
So I kind of just want to give like a kind of like a little brief state of Stokes, from the last meeting that we had in June through everything we've done through the summer and things that we're planning and need to do. So I believe Ms. Bryant will share screen in just a moment.
I will as soon as I can bring it up. Hold on just a second. My apologies.
And you got the latest version?
I believe I do.
Okay.
Excuse me, while we're waiting on that, can we get review and approval of the minutes from the June meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
I think it's missing on the agenda, so it's easy to overlook.
Great. Did everyone make sure everyone received the minutes from the June meeting?
Are they in the live binder?
That's a good question. I don't recall.
I think that they are missing from the live binder.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't remember.
Okay.
They're
Well,
not
then
in my binder.
why don't we just hold that until the next meeting?
Okay, I'll make a note. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
All right. Are you able to see?
Yes, we are.
All right. Mr. Bobby? Mr. Bobby, can you see the?
Yes,
Okay.
I was muted. My apologies.
Oh, okay.
All right, good morning, everyone. And this is the interim executive director's report for today, September 9th, 2023. And we can go to the next slide. So in my report, I have the Summer Professional Development Institute, Howard University Day of Service, first day of school, enrollment status, hiring updates, park scores, after school, our partnerships, reconfiguring East End classrooms, COVID, social justice, goals for the year, strategic plan, middle school update, upcoming events and celebrations, and then the homebound hospital policy, which needs to be voted on later today. So for our Summer Professional Development Institute this year, we hosted over 40 new employees during the new staff orientation on the week of August 7th through the 11th. Our all-staff SPDI took place for, it was a 2-week Summer Professional Development Institute, SPDI, from August 14th through the 25th. And it was great because we started with a welcome from our board chair, and then we transitioned into an all-staff pep rally. And then I started the training off by stating the why, which grounded us in the purpose on why we are all here. I led the activity by using words from our mission statement and our values statement. And during that time also, for the first time, our entire leadership and hiring manager team participated in an HR training, which was great. So next slide. Every year we have students from Howard University. They have the Howard University Day of Service, and we had over 30 students, over 30 student volunteers participate on both campuses. And they did everything from cleaning to painting and setting up classrooms to make sure to welcome our scholars on the first day of school. And next slide. And speaking of our first day of school, we had the annual first day of school celebration, which is a hit, with our families and staff, and especially our students. Our parade was led on both campuses by the local fire trucks. Our kids had noisemakers and pom-poms. We had at both campuses, we had PTO representatives and PTA representatives at Brooklyn. And of course, Buddy Bison showed up. He's the mascot for the National Park Trust, who's one of our longest serving partners. And also we had some board members. So I want to give a huge shout out to a couple of our board members who attended. Kira and Beatriz attended over at the Brooklyn campus, and Beatriz gave a speech, a welcome to the families. And then we had Amy over at the East End, and Amy understood the assignment. She was recruiting every person she saw and met, trying to get them part of the volunteer to be on the board. And that day we met Tim, who's here with us today. I'm going to talk about our enrollment status. As an LEA, our enrollment status right now stands at 600. Our current enrollment stands at 692 students. Our goal for the 23-24 school year is 720. So we're right now about 28 short of that. Our enrollment ceiling, like once we are at full capacity at both schools, is 750. Which will be 350 at Brooklyn and 400 at East End. Operations, they're still in the process, as they do every year. They're still in the process of sending out offer letters to families who are on the waiting list. And October 5th is the cutoff for enrollment. So I think that we will get pretty close to our goal of reaching 720 students. We're still, so our hiring process, we're still in the, we're still hiring folks. We're still hiring after school attendants, and then a lot of TAs, lunch monitors, and paraprofessionals. but we have most of our teachers already in place, and our learning specialists, and so we have everyone in place. So these are the folks who are still waiting to hire. I want to also give a big shout out. This year we have international interns. We have 5, I believe we have 3 at one campus and 2 at the other. And we also have Stokes families who are hosting these interns as part of the program. So I want to give a thank you to the families who are hosting these student interns. All right, so we just got our PARC scores. And PARC stands for Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, which is why short for PARC. It is a standardized test that is mandated by the Office of the State Superintendent by OSSE for grades 3 to 12. PARC scores, they scale students from, on a scale from 1 to 5, with 3 indicating that they are approaching expectation for college and career readiness. 4 means that they are meeting expectation, and 5 means that they are exceeding expectation. Just very few students get a 5. So I'm just going to briefly talk about what you see in front of you. So I'll do Brooklyn campus first. So ELA stands for English Language Arts. 75.3% of our students received a 3 or higher. 47.7% received a 4 or higher. And that was an increase by 10% from last year. In the math for Brooklyn campus, we had 67.9% of our students received a 3 or higher. 42.5% received a 4 or higher, which is an increase by 12% from last year. At East End, we saw the decline in scores. 43.4% of the students received a 3 or higher. 14.4% received a 4 or higher, which was a decrease of 7% from the previous years. In math, we had 32.8% of students receive 3 or higher. 14%, excuse me, 14.4% received a 4 or higher, which was also a decrease of 10% from the previous years, or from the previous year. If you can go to the next slide. So the instructional leadership team, they're analyzing the data to understand, the next step. So they're taking like a real deep dive in this with the data. They will be able to share a more comprehensive data picture in October when they have when we have First Friday October meeting with parents. We'll be able to share a more comprehensive picture of this. And I asked our chief academic officer and our interim chief of staff to present at the next board meeting, if that's okay with you guys, once they have analyzed, the numbers. But one of the initial things that stood out was the amount of staff turnover. Unfortunately, teaching generally had about a 40% drop of teachers leaving the profession during COVID. And, we were not immune to that. We had a very high turnover rate at East End. The interrupted learning that took place during COVID. And of course, it affects, certain demographics more than others. And then, we want to definitely improve like the culture, the classroom culture, by training teachers on responsive classroom and restorative justice and, classroom management and stuff like that. But I do want to just emphasize before, a lot of people equate PARC scores and standardized test scores with intellect, and, it is not, the PARC scores do not equal intelligence. But, you know, with that being said, you know, we do have a lot of work to do. And just like the test is not a one size fits all intervention, we got to look at each individual student and see what's going on with them. And I want to end. Oop, I'm sorry.
Oh, can I ask you? Can I ask,
Yeah.
are we holding questions until the end, or should we do them after each section? What do you prefer?
We can pause for questions. And I just want to, can I just read this last quote by Dr. Ivory
Oh,
Tolson?
of course.
Behind every number, there's a person, and behind every person, there's a story, and behind every story, there's a solution. And Dr. Ivory Tolson, he's the National Director for Educational Policy at the NAACP, and he's also a professor at Howard University, an author, and a speaker, national speaker. So I got that quote because this quote came out of his book, No BS, No Bad Stats. So sure, I'm fine with stopping for questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Bobby, for all that information. So my I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, you have listed here like some of the, I know that your team is still going to be analyzing this data, but you have here some of the preliminary thoughts as to why I think maybe the scores went down at East End. I'm curious to know whether or not you all have any preliminary thoughts as to why what attributed to the scores jumping 10%, right? And 10% increase at Brookland. Is that right? That they were, am I reading that data point right?
Yes.
I'm just curious to whether or not you all have had a chance, and if not, maybe the next time we meet, I'd be curious to hear, like, I see why you all, what your initial thoughts are as to why the scores went down at East End, but I'm curious to know what you think may have attributed to the scores going up by 10% at Brookland.
So when we looked at the numbers, the fourth grade class had a 30% increase. I don't know why, we haven't looked at the number, but they went the same class that last year scored 30%, around 30 in the low 30s. This year scored like 60% level, 60% of them got a number 4 or higher. So that was one thing that definitely jumped the numbers up. But we haven't analyzed what, why. So that was the biggest jump that brought the numbers up.
And is it, I mean, since these scores are about college preparedness, is it worth doing an exercise to see how Stokes compares to either other similar charter schools in the city? And then also, I mean, this is just my own curiosity, just thinking about, like, when our son gets to the point where he's ready to apply for college, and thinking about the other kids across the city. I mean, frankly, even around the country who he's going to be competing with. Do you all think that it's a worthy exercise to take a look at, like, where these scores stack up against other schools in the city, and then also maybe more broadly?
Yeah, so they do that. So DC just released the scores. So there are different sections. Like there's a section for just all these, comparing DC and public charter school, DCPS with DC public charter schools. We can actually look at the numbers, like when we look at language immersion schools, which is probably more closely aligned to Stokes. Again, it's one of those things where you have to look at, like, the demographics. You have to look at, how many students are ELL. That's a huge factor. ELL means English language learners. I'm ELL myself. So you have to look at, there's something called at risk, which means, homeless, or ward of the state, or they're on TANF, all of these things, income level of families, if I have food insecurity, so there's like a whole different ways that you can cross analyze this, and it is a really, really deep dive. I know one thing that they're doing in colleges is they're no longer looking at SAT and SAT scores, because it's not a true indication of the student's ability. So but yeah, so there's going to be all kinds of in the next couple months. There's going to be all kinds of analysis happening, so we do look at that. We do look at cross-sectional, we look at race, we look at gender, we look at, so that will
Okay.
be presented more and more depth in November.
Okay, and I promise this is my last question / comment on this
Okay.
slide. I mean, just also thinking about, like, my friends and I joke all the time about how horribly we did on standardized testing in grades, in K through 12.
And look at you now.
I'll tell you a story one day about how some test in the 9th grade said I was going to be a bean farmer when I got out of school. But anyway, but I mean, some of me and other parents, like, we've already started talking about with kids in the 3rd grade, like, about standardized testing prep. And so again, like, we don't need to really talk about it now, but I would love to, know at some point, like, if Stokes has, I mean, given everything that you've said, right, about the disparities in testing, a lot of those having to do with all kinds of inequities by marginalized communities. If there are opportunities for even as early as 3rd grade for test preparation for parents to take advantage of, either at the school or somewhere else. But again, we don't have to necessarily answer it now, but it's just something to. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's just a thought, like, maybe something that we can put in the parking lot, or maybe I think you were about to say when the instructional staff comes on, just something to think about, and, like, resources, knowing what's ahead of a lot of our kids when it comes to standardized testing. I mean, if there are resources either through the school or through the city that parents should be aware of to try to help our kids just be better standardized test takers. Because I wish I'd had that when I was a kid.
So, the instructional, I'll let the instructional leadership team answer that one. But my belief is that, we don't want to, like, teach to the test. We believe that if we teach students to be lifelong learners and teach them math, teach them English, language arts, teach them Spanish and French and science, and for them to love learning, we're not necessarily teaching to the test. We're teaching them to have these lifelong skills that will, translate, hopefully, into them being able to score higher on the test. So that's my belief, and and it's something that I think research shows works better. But I will let the instructional leadership team, if you want to save that question for November, if they're allowed to come on. I don't know if I still haven't spoken to Anton to see if we can add them to the agenda for November.
We can.
Okay.
Thank
you. Thanks, Mr. Bobby. Sorry for taking up so much time.
No, I appreciate the questions. I encourage the members of the board to ask questions and to seek clarification about things that they are uncertain of. I think this is an opportunity for us to continue to build our understanding of how Stokes and how we can help Stokes. So this seems to be a question from Tim.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this. I think it's very helpful seeing that. I think any additional questions I probably have you probably want to punt until October, where there's going to be more information. So I have an appreciation for that. I would say, though, one thing I know that as a parent, folks will probably want to know is any preliminary actions. You have some preliminary findings with any preliminary actions that you could present either now or in November at the next coming meeting. So I just did want to say that.
Preliminary, like what steps? So knowing what like the high turnover rate with staff, like knowing that, like what are we doing?
Right. So the 3 things you have listed here, if there are any things that as you do a deep dive, there are probably going to be some more long-term, short, medium, long-term strategies you'll have related to that. You may not have those right now, but are there any immediate ones that you kind of saw right away that you all implemented something, or things that you think you may do over the next month or so?
Yeah. One is staff morale, trying to keep up staff morale. That's one of my goals. To reestablish like the Stokes culture, of kind of like a super duper like family feel. This is not just a job, but it's family. So I'm visiting both campuses. Everyone seems happy. We're doing like different incentives for staff, having like first Friday breakfast for staff. We call it Friday coffee. Now it's going to be Friday coffee, tea, or hot chocolate, because not everybody drinks coffee. I was being biased. So we're going to have different things that we do for teachers, different incentives, give, little gift cards here and there, visiting their classroom, making sure they feel supported. It's one of those things again where we weren't immune to what was, teachers were just burned out by COVID, and we lost some really good teachers. And just want to make sure that they're happy. That's one thing, we're continuing the interrupted learning from the pandemic. We are continuing to look and strategize. That's a multi-year thing. And it's not just academics, but it's social emotional. And again, it affected a certain demographic more than another, so that's one of the things we're doing. And then the trainings, like I said, during SPDI, we did training around classroom management. We're going to continue to do those. It's not like a one-time thing where you do classroom management training and then you don't look at it again until November. It's one of those things where we have to continue to do it, and our assistant principals will take the lead on that, on creating, a better school culture.
Thank you.
And the instructional leadership team meets every week, so they're starting already to analyze those. So,
and I have a comment to address Tim's question as well as a question for you, Bobby. And so another thing that we've done is to focus on continual development of leadership of Stokes. And so I had the honor of being able to go in and lead a very talented leadership team and some basic core, both philosophical and practical skills that are required by leadership. Once again, so focusing on making better leaders to allow them to make a better impact on their direct reports is kind of one of the things. But a question I have for you, Bobby, is this: do we currently do any kind of engagement or satisfaction survey?
Yes, we do what's called an insight survey. That's typically around November. We do it twice a year, November and late spring. It's called the insight survey.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, or can I move on? All right, next slide, please. After school, about half of our students are enrolled in after school, and I'm happy that we are moving, and I say this with caution, post-COVID. Moving to post-COVID clubs, making the program more robust. What happened during COVID is that, we had to limit our clubs very much, only per grade. If we had to do it by first grade, second grade, third grade. So there was a lot of stuff that we weren't able to do. But now we're able to mix grades like we did before, so we can have martial arts, steel drums coming back, boys club, or Boy Scout and Girl Scout, tennis, just to name a few. We're also have a new invoicing system that helps invoicing for parents. And it helps us give invoice for parents, and it helps parents pay, so it helps the payment process. And we're continuing to do ongoing training for after school staff to improve their skills and to keep our scholars safe and engaged. And I just want to highlight that our Stokes after school program is ran by three of our Stokes School alumni. So that just makes me peacock proud and honeymoon happy. And two of them, Tokumbo and Jay, they were my very first students when I started at Stokes as a TA. They were in my first grade class. So to see them now running the after school program makes me smile, makes my face and my heart smile. These are a few of our partners. I didn't name them all, but we're continuing to strengthen our partnerships with these folks. This semester we have 2 Howard University student teachers and 3 Catholic University practicum students who are also student teachers, or they're going to be student teachers. And our hope is that for the first time this year, we will have a 2-way exchange program with our international partner schools in Panama and in Martinique, we typically, since 2004, we've been sending students to Panama and to Martinique, and now we have such a strong relationship with these two partner schools that we built over the last few years that there's discussion about them bringing students to us, and hopefully even maybe do in the future do like a teacher exchange program where maybe one of our teachers can go there, like an English teacher, and then we can have like a Spanish teacher or a French teacher come here and do some great collaboration and learning. So we can move on to the next slide. We were able to reconfigure the East End classrooms to accommodate the ABA class at East End. So, we only had enough room. Like this year the 5th grade moved up, so they had to reconfigure one of the rooms so we can keep the ABA class. And ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the classroom that serves students who are on the autism spectrum. It's a self-contained class that we have there at East End. And we currently have 6 students in that class with an ABA teacher in there. And something else that we were able to do is to our pre-K playground, we were able to section it off. Like there's a fence now over there where they have like their own little safe section, and so we're going to fill it with pre-K type of things. We had applied, or we are applying, continue to apply for other playground improvement grants. So if anyone knows of any other grants out there, we applied for Kaboom. We were one of the finalists and we didn't get it. So we'll continue to apply for other grants to help improve the playground. But, that's a work in progress. We are aware that COVID is on the rise again, and but we already have like established policies and procedures in case the numbers creep back up to how they did, in like last year and the year before. But for right now, we're just encouraging folks to follow the CDC guidelines. So if like someone tests positive, they have to quarantine or they have to be out of school for 5 days. And then when they return, they have to mask for 5 days. And that's just we're just following the CDC guidelines, but we are monitoring these numbers closely as well, along with Department of Health. And I'll see. Social justice, I want to just talk about that, we remain steadfast in our commitment to social justice. We have ongoing trainings on equity, equality, and biases with our staff members. We're in the process of creating a pay scale with our staff in a very, very transparent process. So this is actually a mandate, an ALSI mandate. We had to raise teacher salary average of 12.5% from 2020 salaries. So, and then to create a pay scale that we will have in the spring. And when we complete the pay scale, we will retroactively pay teachers for the year, for the 2023-24 school year. So if we complete it in, let's say in May, then, they will get retroactive pay from October. I also want to highlight, so that's something that's social justice, very transparent, and we're having other teachers. So we're putting a committee together to create this pay scale, and it's, teacher assistants, teachers, language teachers, administrators. So working as a team. I want to highlight one of our East End staff members who temporarily resigned to serve in the elections in Guinea on behalf of USAID. She will be working there to ensure that there's an equitable process, that human rights aren't violated, and that there are safe and fair elections. We could have used her here. And during morning lineup, I emphasize students that service is a lifelong commitment and obligation. And, we gifted her the hat that you see is the Elsie Willow Stokes hat and a coffee cup so that she can take with her. But the students gave her a big round of applause, and they were, it was emotional because she's been with us, but as soon as she gets back, she will be back with us. So, and I touched a little bit on this earlier. Here's, a few of my goals for the year. I'm entering my 23rd year here at Stokes, so I'm very familiar with, the culture here at Stokes. And I want to reestablish some of the cultures and traditions that even I helped, build over the years. I truly believe that happy staff equal happy students, which equal happy families. And overall, we will have a more positive outcome. And I want to also emphasize that we are we are one school on two campuses. I've heard from parents and staff at East End that they felt like, they were an afterthought sometimes. So I just want to make sure that, to keep emphasizing the one school, two campus philosophy. And I spend a lot of time over there at East End as well. Financial sustainability, I spoke a little bit about the pay scale, and I also want to continue to, secure funding to improve outcomes for the school. And continue to address the impacts of COVID during, the impacts of learning due to COVID. Again, this is a multi-year goal. So we're going to, do things like expand tutoring, have additional teacher training, and provide more social and emotional services. That's one that I think it's overlooked a lot. Everybody's like, how are you going to improve grades? But, not just the students, but the parents and staff experience trauma. So I think that if we try to move forward without addressing the social emotional trauma that folks experience, we're not going to get the results that we want. So this is our strategic plan from 2019 to 2024. So it ends at this year. So I'll just quickly read through these. Sustain and improve our scholars' academic, social wellness, and social justice outcomes. Strengthen internal systems and process. Expand, strengthen, and sustain our resource, so human resource, social and financial. Increase the number of students and families served by the school, and enhance our position as an advocate and thought leader in urban education. So from this strategic plan, the work that still needs to be completed, intentionally focus on enhancing our school's position as an advocate and thought leader in urban education. Continue to elevate and demonstrate commitment to social justice, and that's in progress. Identify tools to fully measure student and staff health and wellness. Refocus efforts on total compensation. Develop strategic communication plan, and create a decision-making framework for the LEA leadership, and that's also in progress. So at the end of this year, next, we have to develop a new strategic 5-year plan for 2024 to 2029. So to revisit and complete the unfinished work of the current strategic plan as applicable. Develop a new plan with input from the board members, school leaders, staff, students, families, alumni, and community partners. And build on the previous success to focus on academic excellence, financial sustainability, school growth, ensuring a pipeline of well-trained educators, strengthening internal systems and processes and procedures, and then to continue to focus on recovery from COVID. And then I'm going to, these next couple of slides, I'm going to let Ms. Erica Bryant take the lead on these two.
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Board of Trustees. I wanted to give a quick update on conversations that we've been having over the past couple of years about potential middle school expansion. But before I get to that, for anyone in the meeting who doesn't have the full history of DCI, I wanted to get a brief history of how DCI, the middle high school, where our students currently are admitted in high numbers after they graduate from Stokes. So between 2012 and 2014, Stokes, along with 4 other language immersion public charter schools in the District of Columbia, came together to create DCI middle school at the time that would give all of our students an opportunity to continue their language studies in an IB setting, which had not previously been available to all students. The original conception of DCI was to incorporate all of the best parts of each of the member schools. And DCI now, 10 years later, is a very successful and highly sought after middle and high school. Families from the member schools, all 5 of the member schools, as well as families from the general population in the District of Columbia, seek out admission for their children into DCI. When DCI was originally created, each of the member schools had an allotted number of spaces within the school that students could be admitted to. Since the original conception, DCI has grown significantly, and therefore the original number of allotted seats at some point will not be sufficient to accommodate all of the rising 6th graders from each of the member schools. In 2018, when we opened the Easton campus, we understood that this would be a challenge that we would be facing as soon as Easton had graduating 5th graders. So we began to brainstorm about how we could offer additional middle school seats to Stokes School students, particularly east of the river in Ward 7 or 8, because we felt like it would be more convenient to have access closer to the Easton campus. And so we thought, we planned, we met, we talked with people, but our planning got sidetracked because of COVID. And then just a moment. First, there we go. Last, I guess in 2021, Stokes Schools Board approved moving forward with a potential opening of a middle school in Ward 7 or 8. In 2022, when Stokes leadership staff met with people at the DC Public Charter School Board to start talking about expansion options, we learned and understood that in our agreements, our school's agreement with DCI and with the DC Public Charter School Board, we have turned all of our rights and responsibilities. This is actually the case for Stokes School, as well as all of the other member schools. We have turned our rights and responsibilities for 6th through 12th grade over to DCI. So that currently prevents us from expanding on an individual school level to 6th through 12th grade. That does not mean that we have stopped looking for options for our students, particularly in Ward 7 or 8. So in June of last school year, Stokes and all of the member schools and DCI actually began convening, meeting together with support from a local education support organization. We began having discussions to find solutions to this potential shortage of seats issue. It is an immediate problem for Stokes because we now have a 5th grade graduating. It is immediate challenge for Stokes because we now have a 5th grade graduating class at East End this year, but all of the other member schools will be facing the same challenge. So we are in conversations with other leadership at the other schools. We have also sought out some counsel from a local expert in charter school law to put all of our heads together to figure out how to expand options for our students. We will continue to meet together, Stokes leadership with member schools and DCI to work on a solution. At Stokes, we feel, again, a certain sense of it is an imperative for us because we have this challenge right now. But as we continue to work on this issue, we will keep the community informed. Just wanted to let you know that the conversations have not stopped, and we are doing our best to absolutely find a solution in the very near future.
So Erica, can you remind us what what year will space begin to be an issue? Is it
Next school year? So Stokes School has a certain number of allotted spaces in the 6th grade class at DCI. When we set those allotment numbers, that is when we had one campus only. So this school year, East End has a 5th grade graduating class. So we will have 2 5th grade, well, technically 4, 2 Spanish and 2 French graduating 5th grade classes, both campuses. So the number of spaces that Stokes has allotted with the DCI 6th grade class will not be sufficient to accommodate all with the current, under the current agreements. Stokes School will not have a sufficient number of seats in DCI's 6th grade class for school year 24-25. So it is a challenge that we are faced with right now, and we are working to find solutions right now.
And will there have to be some sort of lottery?
That is a potential solution.
Okay.
So in October, our last meeting was in June with the whole cohort in DCI. We have another meeting that will likely take place in October to talk about all of the information that we have collected in the last couple of months and strategize on how to move forward, whether that is through a lottery system, whether that is through some other means. But all of the member schools have committed to working on this challenge. All of the member schools will be working on some common language to distribute to our school communities to explain what's going on and to explain the solutions, the potential solutions that we'll have in place.
Okay, that's helpful. And then one last question. So what is my question? I mean, I know that the member schools are that consortium is what founded DCI, but is DCI, so should we be looking at DCI now as I mean, it is like a completely separate governed body, right?
It is a completely set, it has its own board of trustees, completely governed separately from the member schools. However, we are working toward more collaboration between the member schools in terms of planning and communication, just to ensure that everyone kind of knows what the other school is doing, and so that we can have some common understandings and common planning, common language, and so forth. But yes, completely different entity.
And so is DCI, does DCI have plans for expansion in the near future is my first question. And second, so could DCI potentially be an ally in the plans that Stokes and the other schools in the consortium have to expand?
I know that DCI's executive director and board of trustees are having conversations about this issue that we are all facing. I cannot say right now that DCI is planning to expand. That is a decision that their board and their executive director needs to make. But we are absolutely, all of us are allies. We all understand that the reason that DCI was created in the first place was to give all of our students an opportunity to continue those language studies in an environment that, takes the best of all the member schools. So we all understand that that is the objective, and we want to create that opportunity for all of the students that come through all of our schools, right? So we're all working together, and we are working as allies. There's no contention here. We just want to come to a solution that works for all of our students, whether it's within the confines of our current agreements with each other and with DCPS, or if it's some other kind of agreement. We're looking at options, and hopefully by October or early November, we'll be able to communicate out some of the next steps that all of us are planning to take.
Thank you. And thanks for your continued work on this. What sounds like a very obviously unexpected and complex situation.
But a worthy cause.
Yeah.
Yes.
Worthy. So thank you all for your continued work on it, because we want expansion.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you as well. I did, and thank you, Adina, for those questions, because you covered most of what I was about to ask. But one thing I did want to ask though, are there any deadlines that we should kind of have in the front of our mind? I know with the lottery opening in December, there may be some deadlines that need to be hit in advance of that. And so are there any things that we should be just thinking of related to that?
So we will Stokes will do its absolute best to get out any information that might impact like applications to my school DC before those application deadlines.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Bobby.
All right. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me? All right. Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Yeah, it is very complex. I wish there was an easy answer, but if there was the easy answer, we wouldn't be having this. Everyone received, so these are our events and celebrations for September and October coming up. We have, parent orientation, September 1st, Friday, back to school nights, Hispanic Heritage Month celebration, Taste of Stokes, and the fall outing. The fall outings when both campuses go out into the wilderness, in the parks and different, pumpkin patches and stuff. I have little asterisks next to like Hispanic Heritage Month and Taste of Stokes. I shared the calendar of events for the whole year with the board. As promised, I will send monthly reminders to the board of upcoming events. And then I will send calendar invites, like actual calendar invites to board members for the events that I think that, it would be helpful for you guys to participate in, like the first day celebration. I think it was great for staff, families, and children to see the board members. And earlier, Beatriz asked me, or she said, yeah, I have my graduation shirt, but I don't have a purple Stokes t-shirt. So I have ordered t-shirts for board members. Hopefully I got the sizes right. But I ordered t-shirts for board members that look like these Stokes School t-shirts, but on the back, it says member of the Board of Trustees. And that way, when you do come to these events, folks will be able to identify you when you're there.
If I could jump in for a second, Bobby.
Yes.
I really want to encourage the board to become more active in activities with the school. I think it's a wonderful way for us to increase our involvement, and it was really a pleasure to interact with the leadership, and for them to get to see that members of the board aren't these boogeymen hovering over, formerly Erica, and hovering over Bobby, that we are people that we laugh and cry just like them, and that we all have the same interest in putting the school as a crucial part of the environment of the community. So once again, I really want to encourage us to be active and visible at activities so that folks get to know who we are. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you. Next slide, which I believe might be my last slide. Am I muted? Can you hear me?
No, I'm muted. And for some reason, I can't get to that next slide. Hold on a second. I may have to stop sharing. Yeah, just a moment.
And as Erica's working on that, is Bill on the phone, on the call?
He is. He's holding in the
Gotcha.
waiting room.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. No? Bobby, what's on that last slide?
It's the HHI policy, the homebound and hospital policy. Do you want me to try to pull it up? This slide?
Yeah, let me try one last time. And if for some reason I can't, there we go. Can you see it?
I can, yes. So I want to talk about the hospital and homebound instruction policy. The students, I'm just going to kind of summarize what it is. If a student has something like some type of medical condition that will put them out, or some type of surgery or something that will put them out of school for 10 days, either 10 consecutive days, or if they have to go back, to the hospital, that they have the right to receive hospital instruction, instruction at the hospital, or if they're homebound, receive instruction at home. So this program allows students to continue academic instruction for the core subjects, so math, science, English, and social studies, I believe, are the four. So the regulation became effective on May 12th, and for the 2023 school year, we must, the Stokes and all the LEAs must establish a policy, post a policy on the website by September 30th, share the policy with OSSI by September 30th, and then report it annually to OSSI about the home and hospital instructions. Earlier, I believe this week, Anton sent out to the board, because it's about a good 15-minute read. But I just kind of want to preface it by saying that our special education attorney, who works closely with OSSI and with the DC SPED co-op, helped draft and edit our policy that I sent you. So the verbiage in the policy that was sent to you was already kind of, through our special education attorney, looked at and making sure that the language aligns with the policy that OSSI is putting forward. So that, I believe that ends my presentation. And I guess they'll be up for a vote later after Bill's presentation.
Because I did have a question about one section of the policy, should we hold for when we are voting for any comment or discussion, or should that happen now?
Yes, Adina, we'll have a discussion. Yes.
I mean, I guess the one part that one of the parts that stood out to me was in the description of instruction.
that it says, what page is this?
I'm
Page.
sorry, let's hold it for the discussion for the, when we do the vote.
Okay, all right, great.
For the purposes of the minutes, I just wanted to note that Rodney Rice has joined the meeting.
Thank you. And welcome, Rowdy. Thank you.
Does he have to say here?
Sure. Rodney, can you acknowledge your presence on at the meeting, please?
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
present. Thank you.
Okay. Shall I let Bill into the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Okay.
So at this point in the meeting, we will be heading into the Finance Committee report.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We can hear you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Okay, I am going to present our financials from last year. These are the numbers which I turned over to the auditors who are now in the process of auditing the books. I think I think we had a good year. Actually, it was better than I thought it would be, which is always good. Share the screen. Okay. Make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Can you all see the screen now? Is it big enough? Okay. Well, I'm going to skip to the bottom, which is our net surplus for the year, because normally when I read a book, I don't go to the end, but in this case, it's good to start from the end and then work our way back. Our surplus for the year is $889,000, which is an astronomical figure. And I'm starting there because I'm going to back out of that number to start with, because that is our results. And the reason I'm starting there is because the main driver for that huge surplus is a swap valuation. Now, I know the Finance Committee knows what a swap is. It's an interest rate swap, but I'm going to do a quick tutorial on it. Our mortgage on Brooklyn is, I think it's considered a 30-year mortgage, but every 7 years we have to renew it. They do not allow a fixed rate mortgage. It's a variable rate. So we're, as you all know what a variable rate is, every month it goes up and down depending on where the interest rates are. We, being the Finance Committee, when we first entered into this loan, 10 years ago, something like that, it was suggested that we get an interest rate swap. And what that means is we enter into another agreement with the bank saying we'll pay a fixed rate for the next 7 years for the time of the loan. And it's usually higher than what the prevailing interest rate is. And what the bank does is they try to get an interest rate that is going to be above where they expect it to be. We, on the other hand, are trying to make sure that it doesn't go crazy. Well, by having this interest rate swap, you are allowed to get out of it at any point, but you have to pay to get out of it. The bank would have to agree that you pay so much and you're out of the swap if there's some reason you want to be out of it. Because of that, our auditors say you have to value that every year And whatever the adjustment is, you have to post as either income or expense. So each year we have a swap valuation on the balance sheet, and the difference is posted to the income statement. Well, we all know what happened to interest rates this year. So this is the first year since we've had it that we've actually been upside, which is a blessing and a curse. We're paying less interest than the prevailing rate, which is good for that mortgage. It's bad for everyone else, but you know, that's where we are. So right now, what that means is that we had to revalue the swap to get it to the point of being what the swap valuation is, and I'll get to it when we look at the balance sheet. But it was $618,000. That's posted as income, but it's a non-monetary transaction. We don't have anything to spend unless we went to the bank and said, hey, we want to cash in the swap, which obviously we don't want to. So it's there, but it's, you know, what we call paper profits. It means nothing. So what I did at the bottom, if you can see, I put it the net surplus without swap valuation, which is $271,000. And I'll be honest with you, that is a super number. That is a great surplus to have. If, you know, during the course of the year, it's really hard to tell where you're going to end up at the end of the year because there are variable things that happen as you go through the year. You know, our budget is based on a plan that's approved in June or the beginning of July, and the school year really starts in August. So there's a lot of variables that go in during the school year as well that impact what our financials are. So when we get a surplus like this is good. And if you remember from previous meetings, I was tending to think that we may have a deficit when we started the year. Once we start getting some numbers, then you could start doing projection. But as it went on, it actually turned over the other way. So overall, you know, it's a great surplus to have, $271,000. And what those surpluses do, it really, think of it as putting it in the bank. It's money, saving it for a rainy day. So if we get to a year where, you know, things don't go our way, where we have additional expenses that were unforeseen, or something else happens, we have this money in our reserves that we can use to make up for it. So as we, now I'm going to go back and go through the main drivers that, as far as from the budget, that impacted our financials. And the first one is the per pupil allowance. We budgeted like $13.6 million. We actually received $700,000 more than that. There's a couple reasons for that. We actually had the correct per pupil allowance. Our facilities allowance was understated. So we actually got more money than we had anticipated. Our budget enrollment, believe it or not, was within one, right? The other thing that impacted is our SPED population, which we get additional funding for because there's a lot more expenses to, you know, working with the SPED population. That increased by 10 or 12. I think I have it in my notes down there. But that's and we also got supplemental payment, which we didn't know about. It was a couple $100,000 that they put in for a supplemental payment. So that's where we ended up with our per pupil. Our federal entitlements, that's our IDA, and it's, what is it now, Erica? ESSA, ESEA. I'm still back in No Child Left Behind. It shows how long I've been here. So, but those are entitlement grants. They say you get it no matter what. We don't know what it's going to be till they actually give it to us. And every year, as you can see, it keeps going down. I had expected it to be higher than it was, but unfortunately it's not. So other than that, the other government funds, we did better than we anticipated. I think I'm not sure which one of the grants we received, but those are sort of like a guesstimate because you don't know what some of the grants are going to be when they pop up. And, you know, now that our development department has really ramped itself up, you know, going forward, it's going to be even better. But so we ended up with 185K over. The big negative, and that's in our private grants and donations. When we budgeted, we expected to have some type of celebration for the 25 years of Stokes. As it turned out, it was one of those years we really did not. I think we're moving it back. So that's that, and the middle school expansion. We were expecting to get grants to fund our moving forward on middle school. And as you know, that was sort of put to a halt by the charter school board, at least right now. So overall, from an income point of view, our total income was over budget by 751,000. Now, one other thing, reading these numbers when you see over budget, and I went through, I corrected it so you see the red and so you know the difference. For income, when you see the income is in the black, that's good. That means we have more money than we thought we would. When you get down into expenses, when you see income in the black or expense in the black, that's not good. That means we've spent more than we had budgeted. So on the top income, black is good, red is bad. On expense, it's just the opposite. So just in case you're looking at this in your leisure and you try to remember that. But overall, like I said, we had 751,000 surplus in net income. When you look down into our expenses, they actually, except for the occupancy expense, which shows it's 628K, you know, less than what we had budgeted. That's because of swap valuation. We have to put in where the mortgage interest expense is. So that's where you end up seeing where it's impacting our financial statement. But the others, you know, personnel salary, that's more than we had anticipated, partially because of what is going on as far as trying to hire teachers and a number of other things. Direct student costs, once again, with the sped population increasing, that has to, you know, that's where the direct student costs really go up. And everything else is pretty much in line. So that is pretty much it from our income statement. Are there any questions concerning it? Okay. And in the live binder, you have this. And once again, I give this is the summary version, which is just I hid some of the rows. If you want to look at each individual item, if you look at budget versus actuals, not the budget versus actual summary, you can go through all this if you really want to get immersed in the detail. But on our balance sheet, did it change on the screen? Nope. Okay. Let's start again. Okay. Now is it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, when we look at our balance sheet, as you know, I'm pretty boring when it comes here. My main concern is really with what you would call current assets or cash or, you know, items that can be turned into cash rather quickly. as you look at that, we have, you know, a $300,000 increase. Our cash in the bank is up 1.3. Our receivables are down $1 million. And the reason for that is last year on our financial state, we had, oh my God, I don't know if it was like 800,000 from the ESSER grants. We had a huge grant that actually it was till November that they were approved. It was, you know, but this year we're not in that. The receivables reflect what we have in ESSER and a few others. So overall, our current assets are up 300,000, which is where, you know, that's always a positive note from one year to the other, because that's really where the reserves come from. Everything else, fixed assets, you know, overall, our assets are down, but that's because of the depreciation on our fixed assets. When you get down into our liabilities, really the one thing of note is our payables is down. And the question I received yesterday is, you know, why was it so high last year? And what happened last year is there was a rent payment that was, we thought was paid, but wasn't paid. So we ended up paying it at the beginning of July when both parties noticed that it wasn't paid. So we had to book it in the previous year. That's why the payables are up. The other payables are just your normal payables that you get from one year to the other. There's really nothing mattering there, or, you know, that's different that really is other than operating expenses or operation of things. So that's pretty much for the balance sheet, unless there's any questions on that.
Can you, thanks, Bill, Sadina. Can you remind us, when does the fiscal year begin again? In July, July
Yep,
1?
July 1 through June 30th.
And does this, I can't remember, I feel like we had so many board meetings at the end of the school year. I can't remember. We approved, so when we approved this budget, were there in the personnel line, does this include, I know there were discussions about either adding development to an existing staff member or adding a position. Is that indicated in the projection for this budget? I can't remember. Or was that decided on? Can somebody remind me? I don't remember what.
Which budget are we talking about? Because the budget that is being presented here is from last year. This was a budget that was approved in probably June of
22.
22. Thank you.
Oh, June of 22. Okay.
Yeah.
So the budget, so we have yet to vote on a budget that would affect like any personnel changes for this school year?
Now, the budget for this year has been approved. It was approved in June or the beginning of July.
Correct.
Okay. So, and maybe this isn't a bill question, but I'm like, hopefully somebody sees where I'm going here. I'm particularly interested in the personnel line. Yes, please.
Okay, so in this year's budget that was approved in June or July of 23, there is in that budget is included someone who will focus on development. So the person who is focusing on development is included in this year's budget.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Bill?
Yes, it is.
Just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
And Bill, you'll be able to, the next board meeting, present that budget for the school year 23-24, just so that the board will see where our projections are, what we budgeted.
Yeah, I can present it again. I think it was presented when it was approved, but I will be more than happy to present it again, because normally the next board meetings in November, that I'll have first quarter financials and versus budget as well. So yes.
So Dina, and any other board members, we could actually see where, per the first quarter, especially in the revenues for per pupil, see where we actually landed and how we're trending against the actual approved budget. I think that'd be a good spot to just see from the start.
I mean, that sounds good. I mean, if others are, you know, up to speed on what we approved, whenever that was in the late spring, I'm also happy to just look at it myself if someone wouldn't mind just bumping it up. So I don't want to take up time in the next board meeting to present unless others also need that reminder. If others don't, then I can just look at it myself in my own time.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's probably not a bad thing to do, because one of the things that we do with the budgets is there's assumptions that are made. So when we have these assumptions, the different assumptions we make are like our enrollment. By the November board meeting, we'll know what our enrollment is. That's really, I guess, one of the key drivers. I don't remember what some of the other assumptions were at the time, but yes, we will be able to present that. And you know, like I said, that also comes up when we go through the budget versus actual.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Any other questions for me?
All right. Well, thanks a million, Bill. Very appreciative of the great information.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too.
Okay,
Take care.
bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, looking at the agenda, I think it's on me. Couple of quick things that we just need to move through. Let's pick up with where Bobby left off in terms of the Stokes Hospital and homebound instruction policy. Once again, that policy went out to everyone. I hope everyone had the opportunity to read through it. And so what I'll do is I'll put forth a proposal to approve the policy, and then we'll have an opportunity for discussion as usual. So my proposal, the proposal is that we approve the submitted Stokes Hospital and homebound instruction policy. Is there a motion to approve that policy?
I thought we were gonna, is there space for discussion?
It's part of the.
Oh, okay. Oh, got it.
So is there a motion?
I make a motion. It's Erica McGrady. I make a motion to approve the policy.
Thank you, Erica. Is there a second?
Mrs. Tracy, I'll second it.
Great. I have a motion and a second to approve the Stokes Hospital and homebound instruction policy. Is there any discussion?
I just had a question. It's on page 4. Hold on, I need to reopen it. On page 4, under the description of instruction. I'm sorry, hold on a second. Oh, here we go. Okay. So is this correct? I wanted to make sure it wasn't a typo. That in the second paragraph in that section, it says that hospital and homebound instruction will be provided to eligible students in the equivalent of 30 minutes per week of instruction in the core subjects. So 30 minutes per week. That's correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I mean, that just, to me, like, I mean, it just, when I was reading through it, I mean, that stood out to me because I thought that was really low. So I just wanted to make sure that was correct and that it met whatever standards there are for number of, or amount of time for instruction for a student to be considered to be enrolled in a school. But I mean, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a typo because it stood out to me.
Yeah,
So
that,
Adina, is that 30 minutes, Bobby, of each core academic subject or 30 minutes in the aggregate? I think it's each core
each
academic
core
subject.
subject. So 30 minutes in math, 30 minutes in
Oh.
arts. So you're getting about 2 hours if
Equivalent 30 minutes. 30 minutes of instruction in each core. Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't read it clearly enough. Okay, that was it for me.
Cool. Thank you.
I have one other additional question,
Sure.
Anton.
Yes.
So I sent in my comments on the policy and I appreciate you circulating it in advance of the meeting. May I also ask that we review the policy, in 6 months and see how it's working to see if we need to make any modifications. And if 6 months is too early, then perhaps a year.
I'll defer to you, Bobby, in terms of the
oh,
requirement.
okay. I thought that was for you.
I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, we can we could definitely do that.
So, sorry, Bobby, let me clarify. So what is the amount of latitude we have in terms of actually adjusting or tweaking the policy?
I think we can't, as long as we stay, so there's a DC, as long as we stay within the guidelines. I think the wording is just semantics, but we have to stay within the guidelines. So like, for instance, like the 30 minutes of, instruction, if we wanted to tweak ours and say something like at least 30 minutes, that doesn't go against, the guidelines. But if we were to say we can only afford to provide 25 minutes, that would be against the guidelines.
So we can enhance it. So if we can enrich the benefit, so to speak, in terms of if we decided we wanted, as Stokes, give an hour, we can make it more rich and to favor the student, but we can't make it any more punitive or less favorable for the student.
I think there's like a basic floor by which we have to meet as far as standards.
Okay.
And then we can do anything above. And the reason I'd like to review it is because, even with, changes to the draft that we reviewed, I still think that after 6 months, we're going to see how in practice it works. And I just don't want it to sort of fall behind. I'd love to see, for example, one of the more challenging pieces to get my head around was with respect to the cumulative days. And if we were in a different place, I'd want to see statistics on how many of our students miss cumulative days throughout a school year of 10 days or more. There's and how will that affect the policy? And how is the policy working with respect to, the parents need to inform the director, and then the director needs to within 4 days. I want to know, what happens if a parent informs the director on the day before Christmas and the 4 days can't be met, right? Normally we have, school days or business days or not including a holiday. If it works the way it works and we can keep it as flexible as it is, that's great. I just want to make sure that we have it flagged to sort of review the policy, make sure it's working as we had hoped it is, make sure it's working for the school, for the parents and the families. And just because it's a new policy, I just don't want it to sort of fall behind. So that's why I'd like to see us review it in 6 months, see how it's working, maybe at a year, and maybe after a year we're ready to go and we don't have to review it annually.
Good point, Tracy.
Okay. And I don't know. I mean, I only know of one student who this policy would have, affected, but but let's just say, God forbid, like a student has to go in, let's say for chemo once a month, and they're out of school for 3 days every time they go in. Cumulatively, we know that student will definitely qualify because every month we know that they have to go in for the next 6 months and they're out for 3 days after chemo, we would provide the services in. Does that make sense? I know, I think you had asked a question about like, how do we know cumulative versus consecutive?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a case where we know ahead of time that we would have to provide that service. So we would plan way ahead of time with that. But if a kid is sick, they're not, we're not going to provide the service. Like if a kid just has, gets the flu for 3 days, that's not anticipated,
Right. I just think it helps when we have a new policy like this, just to see how it plays out in practice. So
Yeah,
that we
I
can
agree.
just ensure that we're doing our best for both the families and for the school, and make sure it's working, and we'll find where we might have some hiccups.
Great.
Agreed.
I have a question about the funding to support this policy. Does it come from special education funds? Does it come from per pupil allocation? Is there a separate allocation?
There's not a separate allocation. It is an unfunded mandate from OSSI.
Thank you.
Currently, hopefully, depending on how many folks it affects in the future, hopefully they'll fund it. But right now it's up to the LEAs to.
Just wanted to get it on the record. Thank you.
All right. Great discussion. Any other issues, concerns, questions? Okay, great. So the proposal there's been a motion, a second, and a discussion. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion to approve the Stokes Hospital and homebound instruction policy, please say aye.
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 I'm in favor as well. May I ask a quick procedural question? Should we go around and do a roll call?
You read my mind, and so I'm going to backtrack. I just thought the exact same thing. So we will do a roll call vote on this. So please indicate aye or nay when I call your name. Adina Ellis,
Aye.
Carlos Bonner,
Aye.
Tracy Freelander,
Aye.
Beatrice Carvalho,
Aye.
Rodney Rice,
Aye.
Erica McGrady,
Aye.
and then that leaves me, Anton Smith, aye. So the motion carries. We have a new policy. Thank you all. Is that what you needed, Bobby? All right. Thumbs up from Bobby.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And then the second thing, and we'll have to do this a little differently than we had originally planned, but we are required to do an annual conflict of interest statement as members of the board, indicating that we aren't engaging in things that conflict with our responsibilities to Stokes. Everyone has the policy. The policy, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby or Erica, has not changed since we did this last year. So there are no updates or changes. So it's the same document that we signed off on last year. And so I'll ask that everyone please review it. The original intention was, if we were in person, to have everyone actually sign theirs. So what we will do is send it out via PDF, correct, Bobby? We'll send it out by PDF and ask everyone to respond by PDF and then return it to you, Bobby. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I ask that if we can get these returned to Bobby by the end of next week so we can close this piece of business out. Are there any questions or concerns about the policy or the process? Cool. Very straightforward. Great. All right, that I think fundamentally concludes the order of business for this September 9th board meeting. So there being, are there any lingering questions, issues, or concerns that we needed to address before moving to adjournment? All right, seeing none. Let me find my notes. Excuse me. Okay, so is there any other business or discussion for the public meeting? Once again, hearing none, I will conclude this meeting until our next board meeting. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I
Second.
second. I second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Let's have a roll call vote on the motion to enter into, well, to conclude the meeting. So Adina,
Aye.
Carlos,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Beatrice,
Aye.
Rodney,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
and Anton, aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention today. Good meeting. Good meeting.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.